Hello to our participants and to our audience. My name is Claire Bannon, the TCS Consulting Partner in Financial Crime Risk Management and Regulatory Compliance in the APAC region, and I'm based out of Melbourne. Welcome to everyone joining for this interesting and crucial topic today, the role of artificial intelligence in combating economic crime, the risks and rewards. An overview of what we will focus on discussing today is how AI can help improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of economic crime frameworks, the key opportunities and challenges related to AI applications, how the global regulatory landscape is evolving to adapt to the era of AI, and what is the future of AI in combating economic crime. We're also going to see practical examples of how AI can help improve the effectiveness and efficiency of economic crime frameworks. This webinar is conducted by TCS and in collaboration with our technology partner, SymphonyAI Financial Services. And we are very excited to present what we have prepared for you today. Let's meet our speakers. Joining us from TCS, we have Arthur Prius, Consulting Partner and the Head of Financial Crime Compliance Advisory Practice. Arthur joins us from the UK. Natalia Taft, Consulting Partner and US Financial Crime Compliance Advisory Practice Lead, and Natalia joins us from the US. Sunil Kumar, Industry Advisor, Financial Crime Compliance. Sunil joins us from India. Raghu Mahadev, Head of Strategy and Solutions, Risk and Compliance, also joining us from India. Joining us from SymphonyAI Financial Services is Elizabeth Callan, AML Fin Crime Risk Management and Compliance Expert, and she's joining us from the US. And Dilip Nair, Head of Solutions Engineering, also joining us from the US. Welcome, colleagues, and what a wonderful breadth and depth of experience you all bring to this discussion. First, let's hear from Arthur, who would like to begin the session with some opening remarks on the importance of AI technology when combating financial crime.
Thank you very much, Claire. Artificial intelligence has made a comeback. For some time, it seemed to be overshadowed by other technologies like blockchain, the Internet of Things, or cloud computing. The turning point was 2022, when OpenAI introduced ChatGPT to the mass market. This has made AI, and especially generative AI, more understandable for millions, shedding light on AI capabilities and benefits for individuals and businesses. Today, many financial services organizations have already implemented some AI-based tools, while some others are still experimenting with them. Examples worth mentioning include NatWest in the UK, which prevented losses of over $9 million to customers by using AI to scan business transactions to identify fake invoices. Another interesting example is NASDAQ in the US, which combined transaction data from more than 2,000 banks together with advanced AI algorithms to detect suspicious transaction patterns. Or yet another example, HSBC, which integrated AI to scan vast amounts of internal and external data, also for suspicious activities. Those and many other examples clearly show that over the years, AI has progressed, enabling faster execution of economic crime prevention and detection measures. It now has the potential to perform many tasks in real time, helping financial organizations to stay ahead of criminals. Interestingly, using AI to combat economic crime presents also significant opportunities for business growth. It is because, for example, tailored fraud detection models can enable a personalized banking experience. Our conversation about AI would not be complete, though, if we had not admitted that the evolution or revolution of AI comes with risks and challenges, and that managing those risks and challenges is vital to the successful adoption of AI for combating economic crime. One of the biggest risks results from the fact that criminals also saw the potential of AI. Remember those spam phishing emails from Nigerian prince that were badly written and easily detected? With the help of AI, Not anymore. Criminals can use AI today to create automated interactions with large number of potential victims at a scale previously not possible if conducted by humans. They can impersonate legitimate services like phone or email services and easily obtain information that allows them to steal somebody's money. Some other risks and challenges result from the nature of AI itself. For example, AI still has the tendency to hallucinate, which means it can generate inaccurate information. Also, it needs a lot of data to learn, and using data obtained from sources like internet may infringe copyright or patent laws. Finally, there is a regulatory aspect that is playing an important and, in the case of some jurisdictions, still unknown role. The European Union's AI Act is taking a proactive stance, developing a comprehensive and rather strict framework. In the United Kingdom, on the other hand, the government outlines proposals promoting a less stringent and more pro-innovation environment. Similarly, in the United States, regulatory efforts focus on addressing AI risk without unnecessarily stifling innovation and competition. In conclusion, AI has the enormous potential to improve the fight against economic crime. However, the already mentioned risks, as well as some other challenges, such as the lack of transparency in algorithms or the need for skilled personnel, require a careful approach from financial services organizations to ensure their operations, their reputation, and compliance can actually benefit from using AI. I'd like to use this opportunity and thank everyone who joined our webinar today. I hope you will enjoy it and you will find it interesting. Please reach out to us afterwards if you'd like to know more, or if you'd like simply stay in touch. In the closing remarks, my colleague Natalia will explain how. Thank you once again for your time today. Back to you, Claire.
Thank you, Arthur. Now we're moving on to the panel discussion, the role of AI in combating economic crime, the risks and rewards. On our panel, we will hear from two colleagues from TCS, Natalia Taft and Sunil Kumar. And we also have a colleague from SymphonyAI Financial Services, our technology partner, whose AI underpinned solutions are well known across the financial services industry, Elizabeth Callan. Welcome all. We're going to discuss the key opportunities and challenges that are associated with AI technology that combats economic crime and how the global regulatory landscape is evolving to adapt to the AI era. Let me start with a bit of a generic question about your view on the latest AI-related developments, especially on Gen AI. Let's start with you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Claire, and so nice to meet with everyone today. Gen AI, there's so much to talk about, so little time and so much to talk about. But I think where I'll start is, just in general, it's generative AI is set to basically massively change the way that compliance work is done, particularly in solving legacy problems that AML and financial crime teams have had for some time. I like to think about it both in terms of direct and indirect impacts and results. So in terms of directly, you can think of Gen AI as like an accelerator, right? So when we think of some of the more manual or time-consuming investigative tasks like sourcing, collating, synthesizing information, Gen AI can do that quickly and super easily now, particularly with the versions of OpenAI that we have now and that we can leverage. And SAR narrative writing has always been sort of a thorn in every team's side. And Gen AI just makes that very quick, very efficient, and still keeps the human in the process. So all of the output is still able to be reviewed, and that human is still in the decision-making process. Indirectly, what I think, so we could think of what I just explained as like an efficiency gain, right? But I think even indirectly, there are effectiveness gains. So a big part of the push for financial crime teams to focus on effectiveness these days rather than technical compliance is a way to determine some of your processes or functions and whether or not they are significantly contributing to the effectiveness of your program. If they're not, you can do away with those and focus your more expensive critical human resources on those processes or functions that are a bigger contributor to effectiveness. So Gen AI can definitely help facilitate that by taking on some of that more manual time-consuming work, making it more efficient, helping the human to become faster in his or her job, right? And so some of those resources that had been on those time-consuming tasks can then be reallocated to more tasks that are, demand a human, demand more cognitive work, and so focus your expensive human resources to that aspect of things. I think a big example of this is, everybody's talking about sanctions evasion now, right? So if you think about applying Gen AI to a sanctions function, you can use this to speed up the sanctions screening, which typically has a lot of noise sort of embedded in it, a lot of false positives, right? So the Gen AI can help you, predictive AI also, but generative AI can help speed up that more sort of systematic work that a screening team would do, and you'd be able to shift those resources to sanctions evasion work, which is a more gray area, a little bit more complicated than screening, sort of like AML monitoring, where you need those human resources and more of that cognitive, full-out investigative capability.
Amazing. Yes, thank you. And what's your thoughts, Natalia?
I think, first of all, nice meeting everybody. And I think Elizabeth covered really well various applications of AI. As a former compliance officer, I say that this is very exciting and it's definitely taking, the industry by storm. I would say only a lazy wouldn't talk about, AI and how AI can be effective in managing their day-to-day compliance, tasks. I just want to maybe turn it a little bit towards use it in unlocking data capabilities, unlocking models and efficiency of your model tuning and detection scenarios. With that said, I just want to put a word of caution. I know we're going to talk about this later, that no matter how much AI, how much new technology you implement, key decisions, key risks remain with compliance officers and with the financial institutions. With the human factor, basically, you can get away from the human factor. So that would be my initial thoughts on this.
Great. Thank you, Natalia. And last but not least, let's hear from you, Sunil. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, today, if you look at say generative AI, I look at it as it is like learning on the foreground and learning in the background as well. See, today, most of the AI system conventionally have been able to learn from the test data and training data, and they are able to give you the best results, which is contextual. But the best part about the generative AI is that it is learning on the go when the user is using it. So it is more from a many-driven to a conversation-driven approach, which is taking AI to the next level. And then there are some other benefits also wherein it is able to give a lot of fillip to the conventional AI. Like it helps in creating a better synthetic data, which is the backbone of any kind of analytics or artificial intelligence. It also helps in text generation and summarization and helps in automation. So overall, if you look at it, it is the future for AI in the form of generative AI, and we have a lot of promise which it holds in the industry to improve and uplift banking functions.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sunil. Exciting times ahead. A question now for you, Natalia, please. How does the global regulatory landscape respond to this new era of AI?
In one word or the one short sentence is excitement, but anxiety at the same time. So while definitely this implementation and the use of AI is evolving, exponentially expanding, the regulators are trying to grasp, to really understand what is happening, and it's not that easy. And unfortunately, they're falling behind. Despite of many efforts, I would say the US is still somewhat behind Europe, unfortunately. President Biden in October late 2023 passed an executive order, and in addition, some states like California states, for example, and some other states in the US also passed some local legislation. Overall, regulatory framework still is work in progress, I would say that. And there are a variety of reasons for that, but most important message is everybody recognizes the need for the regulations. Everybody recognizes that it's very difficult to keep up with the progress. And the regulators across the globe, I would say, aligned that the key areas should be around human rights, should be around privacy, transparency, sustainability, and risk management when it comes to overall AI technology. Now, why they're lagging behind? Of course, there are multiple reasons. One of them being just the progress is going too fast, and the process to pass a new legislation is not as fast. Second, because the underlying regulations are very different, not only within the US, but outside the US, between country to country. And now you're layering new technologies on top, and it just complicates process that much. Third, I would say key reasons is there is no single regulatory body that would be supervising. Another reason is communication between the regulators and the community is a major factor in it. For example, in Europe, and unfortunately this practice is not widespread in the United States, the regulators are turning towards what's called regulatory sandboxes to really explore and test the new regulations. And I would say the fact, just taking it a little bit back to financial crimes and the examiners, a big question is how we're going to examine it. Okay, let's say we passed a new regulation, and now you have to pass some examination manual, right? Similar to what we had for FFIC, the interagency guidance. We don't have it for artificial intelligence. And that creates some level of uncertainty for compliance. How do I develop my policies, procedures, my controls? And for the examiner, right, for the regulator, how am I going to examine now? Yes, now we have this new model, for example, that is very strong and powered by AI. But can the compliance officer really sit down face-to-face to the regulator and explain how this model works, how the risk-based decisions are being made, why certain suspicious activity reports, for example, are filed or not, and certain customers are rated certain way, higher than the others. So all of this, I would say, create that level of complexity. But one, I would say, major message at the end is it's coming. It will happen. It will not be easy, but it is a major focus and a major agenda to make it regulated. So we'll see. It's a moving target.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Now, let's deep dive more into the economic crime domain and discuss. So how can AI help improve economic crime framework outcomes? Elizabeth, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, please.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, there's so many. I think I'll just cover a few, broken down between predictive AI and Gen AI. On the predictive side, there's lots of opportunity to limit false negatives. False positives have been such a discussion in the community for so many years. I think more recently, false negatives in some ways have become even more of a risk. Right. So predictive AI does a good job of limiting false negatives by detecting that new risk, or really the unknown risk, or unknown risk. I think kind of related to that is its ability to focus teams and scarce resources on true threats, often found through data anomalies in these big data sets that some of the old ways of doing things just really could not detect, and in some ways provide more information to explain what the models have found. So rather than just solely relying on threshold triggers, the big data and the AI applied to that in a predictive manner is able to identify real anomalies that could signal true threats, and oftentimes external threats, not just activity that's happening at a customer level, but more strategic threats across the program. And I think that is a benefit that you you don't hear as much. You often hear about predictive AI being able to better address risk at a customer level, at an account level, in a traditional monitoring context where your goal is to, determine if the activity is suspicious and file a SAR. But I think there's a lot more that can be derived through predictive AI and that monitoring by identifying, broad trends and typologies that the institution as a whole is exposed to, and leveraging that knowledge across the program. For example, to feedback into your risk assessments, into your policy, into new product or business decisions. All these things, that those trends and typologies, threats can be leveraged for all those reasons. I think it also is a more nimble way of performing tuning, right? Tuning and monitoring. So it enables the institution to keep pace with changes in criminal behavior, government expectations and advisories. All of these things can change pretty quickly. And of course, if criminals aren't changing, then they're really not a good criminal. So it's important for institutions to be able to keep pace with this, and tuning can be a very onerous task. So predictive AI can certainly help with that and automate that to a certain extent. On the Gen AI side, there were several things that I already covered, but I think what I would pull out of this is, another longstanding pain for any investigations team is consistency, right? At a certain point, investigations, they, by definition, they can't be consistent. You have to have the intelligence lead an investigation at a particular stage of that investigation. But in the earlier stages of an investigation, institutions really take, almost a uniform approach to that initial review. And remaining consistent with that has always been, kind of an issue. But I think generative AI can do a really good job of that by using prompt engineering. So like we often have customers ask us, is there a way to, formulate the types of queries that their investigators will run based on what they think is important at that stage of the investigation? So using prompt engineering in a Gen AI context can really help you sort of solidify that consistency and be able to rely on the fact that your entire team is going after the problem in a similar fashion, at least at that initial stage of the investigation. And then I think at a broad level, in terms of economic crime outcomes, taking it up a level from the institution and thinking of it at, through the lens of a country or a AML financial crime regime within an entire country or region. These efficiencies free up those valuable resources to work on the highest value risks, as I mentioned before. And that goes to enhancing not only the institution's effectiveness, but all of that more effective output, if you will, is then going to government and law enforcement, who can then leverage that. So if the institution's outcomes are more effective and more valuable, it's just going to make the law enforcement investigations, those agents and analysts that leverage this information within the government, it's just going to make those all the more credible, all the more sort of comprehensive, and increase the chances of a successful prosecution and overall national security.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It seems there are a lot of great things that AI is already offering and can offer to combat economic crime in the future. But what are the key challenges with the application of AI? So what are the lessons learned, errors, mistakes, issues, etc., that we're seeing? So Sunil, in your experience, what's your view, please?
Yeah, if you look at the challenges, typically, the first and the foremost challenge is the explainability part that comes with the AI. Most of the regulators, when you are detecting anything and reporting, you are expected to tell exactly why you have detected and how this has led to an alert. And this is something which is evolving over a period of time. See, today, if you see, the AI has become very much explainable. But in the years past, when AI was evolving, it was more like a black box. And that's where the biggest problem was there. And because of that, the evolution of the AI also took some time. Now with generative AI, there is a lot of explainability that has come, which is going to help the regulatees as well as the regulators. The other major challenge that we see is the data silos which the organizations have created over a period of time. And today, the efficacy of the AI is very much dependent on the quality of the data that is there and the data completeness, correctness, as well as they being together. These are the most important aspects in order to arrive at a better, say you can say more accurate results through generative AI or AI. So what is happening here is that when we are looking at the data, the important piece is that first the data has to be curated. It has to be brought into a single platform. And that's where it is very much helpful that we are able to say make the best use of generative AI or AI in the form of say better data. When it comes to the other challenges, data security is also one of the major challenge as to a lot of data is, say, not supposed to be shared or under several compliance factors which are there. And say if you're looking at the randomness of data and try to say, for example, name screening, which you are doing, and if you have to mask the names, you won't be able to do any kind of analytics on top of it. So this is another major challenge that we see that is coming as an impediment. But of course, with improving technology, we are able to overcome all these things. Then on the learnings front, I would say the biggest learning which the organizations have had is that one size doesn't fit all. So it is very contextual that something which will work in a particular organization has to be recalibrated to make it work in another organization. So the best of the models, when you change the data set, may not give you the results, desired results, the moment the data sets are changed. So it is very important that contextualization happens, and the solution development in artificial intelligence has to happen using the resident data of the ecosystem. That's very important. Then the other thing which we have learned over a period of time that it is not like a magic potion, like you create something and you start reaping the benefits all through, and it happens in an instance. What it does is that it has to be given time. It is an iterative process. It is a learning process. So the training data that you give in the beginning may not be sufficient, though it may give you the right set of results. It may take you in the right direction, but it may still not take you to the destination what you're looking for. So therefore, it has to be allowed to mature over a period of time. And that's where our co-panelist said about the tuning part and keeping a close check on the model monitoring. So this is another learning that we are seeing.
Right.
Then the other learning is that the training piece, a lot of training requires to be done. And that's where unsupervised models are more, say, you can say, conducive to becoming, to remaining, say, very much relevant over a period of time. So the training data is something which needs to be worked upon. And the good news is that the generative AI has been able to bring in a lot of synthetic data creation, which is near real. And that is very, very helpful in terms of maturing the models faster. So these are some of the learnings that we have seen over a period of time. And as the situation evolves further, I'm very sure there will be many more areas that will come to the forefront as far as the learnings are concerned. And that will lead to a better and more accurate and next generation artificial intelligence that all of us are working for.
Thank you, Sunil. It's been a really interesting conversation. Before we conclude, I'd like to just pose a question to you all. What would be your final words on the topic, what we discussed today, the role of AI in combating economic crime, the risks and the rewards? So let's start with you, please, Elizabeth, and then we'll hear from Natalia and Sunil, please.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're looking forward to in terms of the future of AI is, where everyone's talking about LLMs right now and generative AI. And of course, those are generating text by predicting the next word or token, based on certain inputs, right? We're also exploring and building what's called large agent models or large agentic models to take LLMs a step forward. And so these act as actual agents that are capable of running tasks for your human resources or in place of your human resources. Of course, as Natalia explained earlier, there are some concerns that institutions will have and should have, and different ways of becoming more confident in what this technology is able to do and building governance and structure around that new technology should they want to bring it on. But in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness of what these agentic models can do, it's just it's just a huge long horizon. So we're exploring that and very interested in using that as a way to not only detect risk but help manage risk.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Natalia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say in conclusion, I would send a message to all the compliance officers out there. Don't worry, AI is not going to take over your job. It's just going to make it more efficient and more effective, because there is still a huge human component that is important in order to supervise the AI, in order to make unbiased decisions, which is one of the major risks, in order to control, like Elizabeth said, the infrastructure, the governance around this, and in order to manage your regulator. So while it's very exciting and we'll have to see how this technology will progress together with the regulators, I would say continue learning, continue keeping up with the technology with your regulator. And I think it's a very exciting progression.
Great. Thanks, Natalia. And Sunil?
Yeah, I would say the keyword is the speed. Today, if you look at say, financial criminals, they are also making the use of the same technology. And the use of, say, Gen AI and all is giving them a new tool also. So it's a race between the financial criminals and the people who are involved in detection. And we have to beat them all hands down. And that's where it is very important that there is a lot of industry level collaboration that happens within banks and also with the regulator. I would say the regulators in different countries are at different levels of maturity in allowing technology to take the center stage. And therefore, what the key message to the industry could be that we should be able to embrace the technology as much as possible, much more than the people who are using technology to sabotage things. And any kind of very fast-paced research by all the banks, either individual or collaboratively, will be highly welcome and take us to a scenario wherein we are able to detect financial crime in real time. That's the dream for all of us. So all the financial crime should get detected and remediated in real-time basis. And that's where generative AI can be a big step.
Claire, can I just add one point to Natalia and Sunil's comments? I think just like Natalia emphasized, working, very closely with the regulators, I think the lesson here is that, if you're looking to get into this technology and really leverage it, obviously you do have to stay close with your regulators, but you also really have to stay close with your vendors. I think legacy solutions were maybe a little bit different in that respect because a lot of institutions were, one of the primary functionality that they looked for is being able to change the models themselves, right? Not having to go through a long process with their tech firm or their tech vendor. But I think in the case of these new types of technologies like Gen AI and large action models, if you're going to get into that space, you want to have a great relationship with your vendor and you want to stay very, very close with them.
Great. Thanks for that, Elizabeth. So in summary, there are many benefits and practical applications of AI in the world of economic crime compliance. Many we've heard you mention today. And the global regulatory landscape is evolving as the technology advances, and it'll need to continue to do so to ensure that AI practices are safe and ethical. Financial institutions and indeed consumers must be aware of the challenges and the risks posed by AI. And again, some of what we've heard today. And organizations really must have effective strategies in place. And then finally, the role of AI in combating economic crime in the future is exciting, and we look forward to seeing how that will evolve. So finally, a huge thank you to the panelists for sharing your thoughts with us. It was wonderful to hear such unique perspectives from you all based on your experiences across the different regions. The objective of this next part of the webinar is to put the theory we discussed during the panel discussion into practice. and help the audience to see how AI can help to improve combating economic crime. We're going to see examples of AI solutions used for Investigations Hub, presented by Dilip at SymphonyAI Financial Services, and Gen AI and language modeling for AML compliance, presented by Raghu at TCS. Let's hear from Dilip and Raghu.
Thank you, Claire, for providing insights around role of AI in combating economic crime. Hello, everybody. This is Raghu Mahadev. In continue with what our colleagues talk about role of AI in combating economic crime, we'll talk about examples of adaptation of artificial intelligence and probably some of the advancements in large language models in combating economic crime. While the opportunities are quite vast, AI provides a very promising capabilities for detecting and preventing financial crime/economic crime for the financial institutions. In this specific example, we talk about addressing the regulatory obligations associated to the financial crime compliances or an economic crime compliances and deliver a positive customer outcome and the market outcome. Probably let's spend a few minutes to understand the current ways of working and what is the deficiencies and how artificial intelligence can help organizations to create a scaled framework in adopting to AI or the large language models to address such deficiencies, right? So when it comes to meeting the various regulatory obligations for financial institutions, there are multiple supervisory authorities, multiple guidelines that are coming through, and organizations need to keep a track of those regulatory obligations, or even for that matter, a specific regulatory action on a financial institution, and need manually look at it in terms of what it means to the organization, what are the obligations, and how are we prepared as an organization to address those obligations, and where are the deficiencies? What is the probability of a non-compliances, and how do we remediate such risk of non-compliances to such obligations, which could result in both negative customer outcome as well as a negative market outcome. So that process today is highly manual, highly judgmental, more prone to human errors. And because it is manual, it also provides a higher time in terms of how do we respond, and limits organizations' ability to scale a framework or establish a scale framework in addressing those compliances to various economic crime regulations. So here we look at deep dive on how artificial intelligence and the large language models can help organizations to build a sustainable framework for keeping a tab of all the regulations, then look at building a robust control framework for a detection and prevention, and also enable to move towards a continuous assurance to stay away from the periodic assessments to more of a continuous assurance to ensure that all the obligations are met. At the same time, robust frameworks are in place to control potential risks of economic crime. So if we put that into life, what does it really mean, and how does a AI will or can help organizations to build that scalable framework? As you can see here is, the nature of the outcomes in such a future ways of working. What would be required is to, can we effectively draft the application? Can we look at what does that obligation mean to a specific financial institution? How is those obligations are met, whether it is an, let's say, economic crime related policies, client due diligence policies, or certain operating controls associated to the economic crime related functions, and make an assessment and respond. So here the way we would approach or how AI could be adopted is a combination of artificial intelligence, the traditional AI, and the language models can help to create a what we call it as a domain assets or a language assets, which is basically a domain assets or a language modeling of economic crime regulatory obligations and associated implementations in the organization. That becomes the science behind it to drive the outcomes of effectively drafting the obligations, looking at cross jurisdictional obligation, what is the different obligations that a financial institution need to meet, and how are we in compliance, or how do we drive the compliance. So that's the business outcome it would provide. But by adopting to this AI and LLM, it would enable you to provide a scale framework, to provide a quicker time to market, a higher accuracy in terms of on identifying such obligations and as well as responding to such economic crime related obligations. So that's a scenario, or that's the problem, how AI or a large language model can help to build that scalable framework for the financial institutions. If you put that into life, what does it really mean is what goes as an input is the regulatory obligations, whether it is a market obligations as well as certain specific consent order, specific regulatory action from FIUs or from the jurisdictions or supervisory authorities into the financial institution. Model that into a language asset. This is where traditional AI and large language model come together to transpose those into a knowledge assets, and those knowledge assets, as you see here, becomes a science behind driving those business outcomes, whether it is drafting the obligations or whether it is assessing in terms of how those economic crime obligations are met within the organization. It enables you as a financial institution, enables an organizations to look at all the various anti-money laundering related guidelines or the broader financial crime related guidelines and quickly assess and quickly respond to potential non-compliances. So with that said, maybe let's look into the demonstration of the solution. Right. So here, what you see here is this is basically all the financial crime related regulations that are loaded here. For example, you can see AMLA 2020, you can see BIS guidelines. So let's look into probably anti-money laundering related guidelines, right? So here you have a AMLA 2020 and a BIS guideline. So what basically AI will help organizations to quickly process these guidelines that are coming out from the jurisdiction and draft those obligations. That's the first part of the business value it would deliver. You could get into the actual obligations, take a look at what are the different obligations an organization has to comply with, right? And then effectively respond to that. Now, again, if we go back and look at, let's say, BIS guideline, we looked into one of the guidelines around the financial crime, which is AMLA 2020. Similarly, if you look at a BIS guideline, similarly, as you can see here, the BIS guideline has got about 300 plus obligations that need to be met. And it will enable you to quickly go into those obligations using artificial intelligence or using large language models to effectively respond to those obligations. Now, what is the science behind this is what we call it as a domain model, right? So this is basically a domain model that is built out of the regulation. It could be a regulation, it could be a specific regulatory action or a regulatory communication for a specific financial institution. The domain model is constructed using artificial intelligence based models. It's basically a combination of unsupervised learning algorithms and as well as the large language model or a vectorization of those models into a large language model, right? So that is the science behind it. Using this language model, it is basically delivering those outcomes. Maybe let's look at, right? So that's where from an obligation drafting, then the second part of the outcome is how do we quickly assess how those obligations are met in the organization, right? So that's where we look into looking at an organizational implementation of it. For example, if you go back to AML as a guideline, as you see here, what has gone as an input is basically the guideline itself, right? It's a PDF document. This is processed by AI models and superimposed onto the large language model. And then the organizational policies or organizational controls are loaded and individual artifacts are transposed into a language model. Language models are constructed using AI across these artifacts, and those language models becomes the science or a knowledge to drive the outcome. So let's look at an example. If you look at how these specific regulatory obligations are addressed, as you see here, we have loaded the policies, we have loaded the controls. Language models are constructed for regulation. Language models are constructed for a policy and for the controls. It could be for the procedures, SOPs of the organization, business processes. So anything can be loaded. And the business value or outcome it would deliver is it would basically using the language models, analyzes, runs on analytics between the regulatory obligations as well as an organizational implementation. Here, let's take a look at policies as an example. All right. So if we look into this, here is where it provides an actionable insights to the leaders in terms of how those obligations are met. For example, this obligation is met by the 4 policy statements. This is comprehensive, sufficient in terms of addressing those. That's basically the outcome it would deliver. Then the second part, if we look at operating controls, we go back to the same place where we were looking at the policy. So here we look at the operating controls, and again, regulatory obligations are analyzed on the one side of it, which is one set of a language model, and an operating controls are, there is an analytic run between these two artifacts or these two language models, and provide a visibility of how an obligations are met. For example, if you take this as an example, this obligation is met by corresponding operating controls, right? So in summary, if I were to summarize the role of a AI here is basically combination of AI and some of the advancement in the large language models or generative AIs are adopted here to effectively draft the obligation and assess an organizational impact, whether it is in the form of an operating policy or an operating control, and provide an actionable insights in terms of the organizational compliances as well as the deficiencies. So that's the value it would deliver. With adaptation of AI, it could significantly enable organizations to transition from a highly judgmental to the data-driven compliances and provide a sustainable framework. So that's the summary of it. With that said, I'll probably hand it over to our event partner, Dilip, to take through a few additional examples of adoption of AI in economic crime. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Claire. So we're going to show a couple of things on this demonstration of generative AI within a investigator and case management application. First thing I'm going to show is the AI-generated case summary for an alerted entity. Next thing I'm going to show is how generative AI can be used in adverse media searches, web searches, as well as third-party data searches. And finally, we're going to show what a system looks like that can generate its own case narrative. So I'm going to jump into one of these alerts, and what you see here in the middle is a investigation summary. What our Investigation Hub Copilot did is it went in and took all of the transaction, account, and third-party data, and as well as alert information, and generated a summary based on that information. So in this case, we have the summary kind of broken out by bullet points. Pembroke Dahl is a corporate account holder, resides at a particular residential address, information on whether or not he's a PEP or any other watch list or sanctions list that he's or she has been a part of. Then we go into some information that provides an outline of their account activity, their account behaviors, as well as any risk factors associated with the entity. Now, this is an excellent way to begin an investigation in that it enables the investigator, someone who may be seeing 50 or 60 different alerts, especially at the triage level, alerts in any given day. This allows the investigator to hone in on the elements that are pertinent to the alerted entity, and from there be able to begin their investigation. So that's one very particular way in which generative AI can look at data, understand data, and provide summaries of that data in human understandable natural language form. I'd like to go into some other features around web search. And in this case, Pembroke Dahl is a made-up individual. So let's take a look at another alert. Here we have George Young, and we may be able to do a search on George Young and see what comes back. And of course, there's going to be many George Youngs out there. And so many of them may not have any financial crime relevance. So what we will see here is a listing that comes from Google or other search engines, and on top of that is a relevance to financial crime. So we have George Young, the saxophonist and musician, not really a high risk when it comes to financial crime. We have the summary of what's provided by Google, but we also have a summary provided by Copilot. In this summary, it's generated by Copilot reading through and understanding and interpreting the elements of the website and providing that back for a particular context within the application. So here, the content provided does not indicate any suspicious, fraudulent, or money laundering activities. If we change this up to maybe George Santos, we may find something more relevant. And so we can look at that and see whether or not the Copilot is able to understand elements of an article and bring back a summary, as well as rank the page returns in order of financial crime relevance, which is something that obviously Google does not do. It page ranks on a very different methodology. So here we have a high financial crime relevance article that's come back. What AP has provided as a summary is election 2024, politics, sports. So it's not really all that helpful. However, the summary provided by Copilot looks at George Santos, the former U.S. representative, several legal issues, including pleaded guilty to conspiracy, charges of fraud, so on and so forth. And so as an investigator, you may want to save that result and use that as a part of a alert narrative. Now, the alert narrative capability is another highly relevant ability within the application to generate alert narratives or case narratives that can subsequently use as a part or a basis for SAR filings and SAR narratives, but is built around the process of investigation, as well as built around the existing information that is available around the entity in question. So we're able to pull in transactional behavior information, risk factors, KYC, CDD information, and present that as a part of a narrative. So as you can see here on top, December 21st, 2001, a corporate entity by the name of George Young, based in France, opened an account. So that is the KYC information. He's employed by Wilkins and is not flagged as a politically exposed person, has information on relatives. Review of the transactions related to George Young revealed several transactions that occurred on May 5th, a number of different payment channels, as well as information on the high-risk elements associated with this entity. We've included information on the adverse media search that's also summarized, and then a conclusion. Now, this forms a first draft on a narrative for this individual. In the same way as if you were to use ChatGPT to create an email that you want to send to your boss, you typically wouldn't send that right away without reading it. You want to take some of the language, modify it, put it into your own words. But as a first draft, it really helps in bringing your thoughts together. So in that way, you're able to effectively use generative AI to substantiate the investigation process and allow you to begin to use elements of it as a part of the overall investigation process. So to summarize, this is a number of different ways in which you can use generative AI to speed up the investigation process, to provide additional context, and to ensure that investigators are standardizing their investigation process, utilizing generative AI as a co-pilot rather than the driver in the seat. So thank you very much, Claire. Back to you.
Thank you both for those illuminating demos. The webinar is now coming to an end. I've really enjoyed speaking to and hearing from you all the panelists and our demo presenters. Thank you immensely for your time and for sharing your thoughts on such an interesting topic and providing practical examples. It's always wonderful to see how these topics can come to life. I also wanted to thank our partner, SymphonyAI Financial Services, for helping us during today's webinar and providing such interesting and valuable insights on how AI can help better combat economic crime. I'll now hand over to Natalia Taft at TCS, who will provide the closing remarks and conclude our webinar.
Thank you, Claire. AI helping to combat economic crimes is without a doubt very important and timely topic, especially since it is also used more and more often to actually conduct economic crimes. With this thought in mind, let's summarize and highlight the key points from today's webinar. Number one, we have discussed and identified numerous benefits and have seen some interesting examples of practical application of AI in the world of economic crime compliance. Number two, the global regulatory landscape is quickly evolving as AI technology advances. But we can already observe different, sometimes more and sometimes less stringent approaches. Number three, with the benefits alone, it is important that financial institutions are aware of challenges that AI poses and have appropriate strategies and mitigating controls in place. But all in all, we concluded that the role of AI in combating economic crimes in the future is very exciting and something to definitely look forward to. I hope you all enjoyed our discussion and presentations, and more important, that you actually learned something interesting, important, and inspiring. If you would like to learn more how AI can help combat economic crime and how TCS and SymphonyAI Financial Services could help you with this, please take a look at the Content tab section at the webinar panel. It includes our periodic newsletter curated specifically for Chief Risk and Compliance Officers, with its latest edition entirely dedicated to AI. It is titled AI in Economic Crime Risk Management, Benefits, Challenges, and Regulatory Landscape. Please make sure you download it and the rest of available documents today. And if you'd like to talk to us, at the bottom of your screen, you will see a row of widget icons. You can either leave your feedback, ask a question, or perhaps request a dedicated demo. And please don't forget to fill out an event survey. Once again, on behalf of our webinar team and our both teams, TCS and SymphonyAI Financial Services, I would like to thank you all for being with us today.